Hey everybody, it's Brandon Ramsey with Indiana Recruiting Guide TV. In this episode, we're going to be breaking down the first preseason AP polls that just came out earlier today. I got my computer with it pulled up over here, so I'm going to keep looking in this direction. But to start off, I'll just kind of give some of my thoughts on the Class 4A rankings. The rundown is Cathedral was first overall with 8 first-place votes. Carmel, the defending state champions, came in second with 3 first-place votes. Pike was third, North Central fourth, Fort Wayne Northrop fifth. North Central and Fort Wayne Northrop both received a first-place vote as well. Indianapolis Tech was sixth. Hamilton Southeastern received a first-place vote at 7th overall. Warren Central came in 8th, Evansville Harrison 9th, and Pendleton Heights 10th. My thoughts on that. Cathedral, without a doubt, #1 team in the state. Probably top 20 type team in the nation, and definitely my favorite to win the Class 4A state championship. Coming in second with Carmel, they're defending state champions, so you got to give them obviously their respect for that, and they still have a very good team, probably a top 10 team. Not second in my opinion, but obviously that's based on winning the state championship last season. Pike #3, can't complain with that. To me, biggest surprise, Warren Central only coming in 8th with that front line of headlined obviously by IU commit Devin Davis. And then you have sophomore Gary Bonds. You have Jordan Garnett, who's going to have a really big year. And you have Jerron Lance as well. And they have underrated guard play too. I really like Sam Thompson, their senior point guard. He's a very good player. He's going to have a great season. Then you got guys like Devin Hawkins on the bench and other guards who can handle the ball and score a little bit. But obviously the scoring is going to center around Davis and Lance and those guys. But to me, they should be a little bit higher than 8th. They're probably 3rd in my opinion preseason, if not 2nd. But Hamilton Southeastern at 7, that doesn't surprise me. I think they're going to end up towards the top of the rankings as well. I think that people are sort of overreacting to the fact that they lost. I mean, well, you can't overreact to the fact that they lost Gary Harris. He's obviously a huge loss. But you might have Mr. Basketball again this year, and you have guys who are ready to step up like Tyler Jenkins, who's going to have a big year scoring double figures. You have Paul Furlan. You have guys like that who are going to make an impact, and they're going to be a top 5 team, definitely. Some of my other thoughts, Pendleton Heights being 10th, I'm a little surprised that they were able to sneak in there. They're still going to be all right, but they're not a top 10 team in my opinion. Some of the teams that were receiving votes, you have Kokomo coming in at 11th, Lake Central 12th, Richmond next, and then Ben Davis, Columbus North, Castle, and Jay County. One thing I'll say, Jay County being that low, that's going to change, absolutely. They are not going to lose many games this year. They don't play a great schedule, so that's part of it. But they also, in and year out, they're one of the most well-coached teams and one of the best defensive teams in the state. And, I mean, they're not going to jump off the page at you because they're not in the Indy metro area. They're not going to play all the big-name teams. They don't have the big-name D1 prospects. But they got 3 really good players in the senior class, Kagan Comer, Brock McFarland, Scott Schwederman, who are going to make some noise. They're going to play in the Hall of Fame Classic this winter, so you're going to make sure to check them out there. They're going to be playing, Cathedral and Tech and the other teams that are, I think, is north of the other team, I can't remember. But and they're going to be playing some of the best talent in the state there, and they're going to get a chance to prove themselves against that type of talent. So that their team, do not sleep on them. They're going to be in the top 10 for most of the season, just based on their record. So that's probably a couple of the surprises there. Evansville Harrison coming in 9th. They're definitely going to be one of the best teams coming out of the South with all the Duncans, Ernie, a junior, and then Stanley and Everett, the sophomores. But they have some other pieces too that people are going to know by the end of the season. So those are some of my thoughts on Class 4A. Moving on to 3A, you have Greensburg coming in at the #1 spot with 4 first-place votes. Andrean is second with 3 first-place votes. Tying for 3rd is Evansville Bosse and Mishawaka Marion. Marion got 1 first-place vote while Bosse got 4. Then 5th is Norwell. Defending state champion Guerin Catholic is 6th with 2 first-place votes. And then you have Muncie Central 7th, excuse me, Lebanon 8th, Brownstown Central 9th, and Mount Vernon Fortville 10th. Looking at that, can't argue with Greensburg being #1. Sellers, Willage, McIntosh, those guys are going to lead them a long way. It took them till the regional final to lose a game last year. Much of the same this year, I think, except I look for them to go further. I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated, but they're not going to lose much, and to me, they're the odds-on favorite to win the state championship. I would personally argue for Evansville Bosse over Andrean. Andrean returns a lot, very good team. I just love the firepower there at Bosse. I think they're going to probably end up matching up with Greensburg in what I believe is the Washington Regional. Other thoughts there. Muncie Central is not the 7th best team in the state. They're going to probably fairly quickly move out of the ring. I mean, they're not. Don't get me wrong, they're not a bad team. I love Travis Woods. He's going to have a very big year now that he's the focal point of that offense. Then a lot of it's going to be predicated around the fact that, or more of the question of whether Tyler Ahrens is going to be eligible or not. I'm not too familiar with what's going on with that situation. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to play or not. If he does, it's going to be a big get, and that could potentially be like a top 15 at that point. But I do not see him in the top 10 really no matter what, especially if he's not able to suit up for them. Then they're going to be a mediocre team in my opinion. The other thing that I would argue, I'm a little surprised Mount Vernon is only 10th. I mean, they didn't win a sectional last year because they're in that really tough sectional with Brebeuf, and I forget. I think maybe Garen's in that sectional too. I can't remember for some reason, but so I mean, and it wouldn't shock me again if they're not the sectional champion this year either. But with Stephen Turner and C.J. Coleman, that's a really solid 1-2 punch. Plus, they have some other talent on that team as well. To me, they're going to definitely scoot up the rankings there as the season progresses. Another surprising thing, Hamilton Heights and Brebeuf looks like they're 14th and 15th. Lots of talent on those teams. Obviously, Alex Etherington and P.J. Thompson, respectively, on Heights and Brebeuf, are two of the best players in 3A. Them alone are going to be able to lead those teams to pretty good seasons. Plus, they have some nice supporting casts around them. So I look for them to move up a little bit as well. Then Frankfort was 11th, Plymouth 12th, and Northwestern was 13th to round out your 3A rankings. Now to Class 2A, no surprise, Park Tudor's on top with 10 first-place votes, 2-time defending state champion. Then you have Bowman Academy, who got 1 first-place vote at 2nd. Tipton is 3rd, Hammond Bishop Knoll and Fort Wayne Lures are 4 and 5, each receiving a first-place vote. Tied with Lures is Wapahani at 5th, who also got a first-place vote. 7th, you have Eastern Green, 8 Clarksville, 9 Broad Ripple, 10 Sullivan. Two of the teams towards the bottom there, Clarksville and Broad Ripple. I really like the talent on those teams. They're both deep. Lots of guys here can hurt you on any given night. Obviously, Broad Ripple lost Ron Patterson, but they have a lot back. Look for them to have a much better year than possibly expected. And same with Clarksville, veteran team, lots of pieces. Both of those teams could move up the rankings by the end of the year. Park Tudor being number 1, cannot complain with that. Sure, they lost Yogi, Troy Spears to transfer to Martinsville, but you have Trayvon Blewett back. Then coming in to fill in Yogi's shoes, you have Austin Shelton, the junior transfer from Avon, and then sophomore Bryce Moore, who's going to have a huge year and really burst onto the scene. You also have Dwayne Gibson, who's going to be shooting threes for this team, and he'll be great as well. So they're absolutely the number 1 team. Bowman is 2nd. Lots of talent, as usual. Some size, obviously not the size they had last year, but still got Justin King, a couple other guys who can bang around inside. Definitely look for them to be there towards the end of the season. And then Wapahani is the other team I'll touch on. I think we're tied for 5th. It's a small school, small town. More of your traditional is not a private school, so there'll be some people, like some of the people who are kind of against private schools probably will be rooting for Wapahani to make a run this season along with Tipton. But Grant Evans is going to have a big year, really fill it up from the outside. Then you have Jacob Foster down low, who's one of the more underrated big men, I believe, in the state. So those are some of the 2A teams. Then others receiving votes, you have Providence at 11, Lapel 12. Lapel has some really good size, and Drew Norton and Brandon Hardwick. I really like those guys, like 6'6" and 6'9", those two. So they're definitely going to make some noise with that size. Then you have North Judson, Adams Central, Linton, Stockton. Mostly just like some of your traditional teams there that'll still be around in Class 2A. Now moving on to Class 1A. Lagodi is 1st overall, 4 first-place votes. Bar Reeve got 1 first-place vote as 2nd. Rockville got 6 first-place votes, but are only 3rd. Triton with Clay Ayo has received 2 first-place votes in 4th. In 5th, Fort Wayne Canterbury with 1 first-place vote. Then you have Lafayette Central Catholic at 6th, then Borden, Edinburgh, Knott's, and Liberty Christian rounding out the top 10. Biggest surprise looking at the 1A rankings is the fact that Michigan City Marquette comes in 11th. I think I had them second in my preseason rankings. They have an extremely talented roster, honestly probably the most raw talent of any 1A team. I definitely look for them to quickly move into the top 10 and probably into the top 5 and be a state title contender. I had Rockville number 1. I mean, they seem to, the last few years, they're always there towards the end of the tournament. They've lost Mahur in it again. He's going to have a big year. But you can't go wrong with Lagodi. They returned Connor Whitmer, who was a junior all-star last year. Lost Brian Ackerman, that's why I moved them down a couple spots. But they're obviously still going to be there. Then Triton has probably the best 1A player in the state with Clay Yeo. And he's going to be filling it up, probably over 25 a game, just like he was last year. Never sleep on LCC, Lafayette Central Catholic, because of the schedule they play, they're always tough. Tough kids, play well together. That's a veteran team who will be there to make some noise as well. Then just to round it out, North Davies was 12th in 1A, Orleans 13th, Hauser 14th, and University was 15th. So 1A is going to be very competitive. There's a handful of teams there that could definitely win the state title. So it's going to come down to maybe some sectional matchups, seeing who gets through, and then, you know, if somebody can get knocked off early, can a team that's ranked a little bit lower make a run? So 1A is definitely going to be as competitive as ever, but as usual, look for Rockville and Lagodi, teams like that, to be there towards the end of the season. And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Class 1A through 4A. We'll probably do something like this about every week when the AP polls come out. Maybe not every week just because sometimes they won't change as much, but I'll try to keep everybody updated on my thoughts on those rankings, just because that's something I don't really do personally. For my website, I focus more on individual players than I do teams. So while I did do the preseason rankings, I'm not really going to be updating those throughout the season. So one more thing I'll add into the video is the next few games that are going to be. Today's Monday. Games did start tonight. However, I can't leave from Hanover until tomorrow because I have one class tomorrow. But I will be able to make it tomorrow night to the Arsenal Tech against Bowman game. So I'll be in Indianapolis for that. And then on Wednesday, I'll be watching Pike against North Central. Friday, I'm going to stay close to home and watch Winchester take on Reno Southern. Winchester's a really good freshman player that I want to take a look at. And then on Saturday, I'm going to be doing 2 games. In the afternoon, I'm going over to Ben Davis to watch them play Indianapolis Northwest. And then I'll be going back to my alma mater, Centerville, to watch them take on Seton. So those are 5 games that I'll be seeing over my Thanksgiving break. If you're going to be at any of those games, make sure you find me. I'll be wearing my Indiana Recruiting Guide polo. Just come up, say hi, talk about basketball with me. I'll be more than happy to discuss things with you. Also, you can email me. I'll put it in the description box, ramseyb14@hanover.edu. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. Check out my website. I'll have both of those in the description box as well. Subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on the videos. And as always, I'll be tweeting about the games throughout the games. So make sure you follow me. On the website after the games, I'll have recaps and all that, top performers each week. So stay tuned for all of that action. Thanks a lot for watching, and hope you enjoy the season as much as I do. Thanks.